Moving on, forensic police have focused their search on an Airbnb in Tenerife where missing British teenager Jay Slater reportedly vanished from.
Well, this comes as one of the men who last saw the 19-year-old insists that the teenager was alive when he last left the property.
Meanwhile, Jay's mother, Debbie Duncan, has revealed her pain and agony over her son's disappearance.
Well, joining us now is travel writer and owner of MyGuideTenerife.com, Joe Cawley. Good to see you this morning, Joe. And fill us in on the latest development, which is that this man, one of the men who last saw Jay, has been interviewed by the authorities.
Yeah, the British man is back in the UK now. He was staying at the Airbnb with a friend. These are the two men, of course, who took Jay from Papagayo nightclub in Las Americas and drove him to the Airbnb in Masca, about an hour's drive. The men have been spoken to while they were in Tenerife by the police, and they were called insignificant to the case. And now I think it's Mark Williams-Thomas has also spoken to them in the UK. And the basically the line they're saying is he was alive when he came here. He was alive when he left. That seems to be where we're at with these guys at the moment.
And Joe, do you think this is something of an embarrassment for the authorities in Tenerife, the police force? Because we've been hearing from that initial, almost one-dimensional search, the lead was Jay Slater went for a walk, a long walk, and so therefore the search fanned out over that terrain, sniffer dogs, drones, helicopters, huge amounts of manpower. Meanwhile, a lot of people are saying, well, what about the apartment where it seems to have all started? And now, all these days later, Joe, it seems to have flipped back to their rather embarrassing sight of detectives going in protective forensic outfits, whereas the last 2 weeks it's been more or less open season on that property. Tourists from all around the world have been flocking there for selfies. Do you think this latest revelation, flipping back to where we started almost, is something of an embarrassment for the authorities in Tenerife?
Well, it does seem strange that this building wasn't sealed off immediately. It appeared to be, from the Spanish point of view, from the Spanish authorities' point of view, that this was definitely a boy that had gone missing in the mountains, and everything else seemed to have been ruled out. So it's kind of strange that over 2 weeks later, now they're doing the forensics. I think when the family were asking for the British police to become involved, I believe that the British police were saying that this should be treated as a crime investigation, and therefore all aspects of it should be investigated fully, and like buildings should be sealed off. So I think in a way it is a little bit of an embarrassment. The Spanish police, as we've said before, give very little away over here. We don't know what they've been doing in the background. They don't give regular public announcements. Maybe something has been happening that we don't know about, but it does seem a little bit strange that now they're deciding to look further into this in a forensic kind of way.
The approach has been very different, hasn't it, to what we would see. We're talking to Peter Blexley earlier on, a former Metropolitan Police detective, who was saying that if somebody had gone missing in the United Kingdom, there would be a press conference every day, potentially every second day, updating the public and appealing for more information. Do you think that the lack of information and the lack of openness from the authorities in Tenerife has kind of opened up opportunities for these armchair detectives to start theorising themselves online?
That's always the problem. This is the way that the Guardia Civil work. It's a kind of a secretive, if you like, operations that they carry out. They don't like informing the public. They don't like informing journalists. The problem with that is then that leaves a void that people fill with their own speculation and opinions. Online Chinese whispers then turn those speculations into so-called fact. And that then spreads. So, yeah, it does cause problems. I don't know why that's the approach that the Spanish authorities take. But, yeah, for sure, it definitely creates that void that people will fill. They want information. And if they don't get it from the official sources, then they'll find it elsewhere.
And Joe, when you go right back to the beginning of this investigation, a lot of us were thinking, well, how come there were two fellas in that property who were allowed to leave the country? Not only themselves physically, but of course their devices. I mean, everything now is triangulated, is searched, is correlated via electronic footprints, particularly via their telephones, their mobiles. That evidence just simply was allowed to leave the country. Looking back now, Joe, that seems like an astonishing oversight.
It seems surprising, yeah. I mean, again, we don't know how the Spanish police work. We know that they did speak to these boys, these men, while they were here, and they were ruled out of any wrongdoing. And even now, there's no evidence of any wrongdoing. But it's all tied in with. You would imagine that all angles would be investigated from the beginning, and it wasn't just pinpointed on a missing person. It's a strange. The case seems to get stranger and stranger as we go along.
And Joe, what's the mood on the island amongst locals there? Are they getting fed up of this now, about the coverage that it's attracting? Because it certainly has brought a lot of scrutiny on the island on the way that the police conduct themselves, or are the public being cooperative? When we had that search, for example, on Saturday, barely anybody turned up to help.
Yeah, but bear in mind that was a search. The call was for professionals, for experts in hiking and mountaineering. It wasn't a call for the general public to put feet on the ground. As for the local feeling, there's still a lot of interest in this case, an awful lot of interest. But as we mentioned before, unfortunately, people are now veering towards the more, should we say, conspiracy kind of ideas and the suspicions that have appeared online. Mainly due to the lack of other information that is out there.
OK, Joe Cawley, thanks so much for that update there from Tenerife.
And that's always the way, you know, if you create a vacuum, which the authorities seem to have done over there, it gets filled with misinformation. That's just the nature of the beast. Maybe they should have handled it differently. As you rightly said, Peter Blakey said if this was a British operation, there'd be daily press conferences, people would be kept in the loop, there'd be an appeal for information, and that in a way stymies that conspiracy theory that tends to fill those vacuums otherwise. So maybe there's a lesson to be learned from that.
Well, hopefully the family get answers soon.